For decades, Alberta has been a global energy powerhouse, known for its oil and natural gas. But today, a new era is dawning, one where hydrogen could play a pivotal role in decarbonizing our planet. In this episode, we dive into Alberta's emerging hydrogen economy. How is it shaping the province's future, and what does it mean for global energy systems? Joining me today is Amit Kumar, professor of mechanical engineering at the University of Alberta and an expert on hydrogen energy systems. His research has informed Alberta's hydrogen roadmap, making him a key figure in discussions about hydrogen production and decarbonization strategies. Amit, thank you so much for joining us today, talking to us about hydrogen, Alberta's role in the economy, not just in Alberta, but also out into Canada and, of course, the globe. And in this series, we're really trying to cover how we are participating on the global stage. But we'll start back here. We'll start here in Alberta and talk about a little bit of the opportunities. Maybe just take us through, where Alberta's strengths are in the hydrogen economy and what our opportunities are here in the province to take this out into the world.
Thank you, Bryce. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah.
I say hydrogen is a big and I would say a big opportunity for Alberta. Alberta is a net exporter of energy. If you think about hydrogen, it's not new to us. We have been producing large-scale hydrogen since a few decades. We use large amount of hydrogen in our oil sands industry to upgrade bitumen. To synthetic crude oil. If you think about, typically in Alberta, a lot of hydrogen we use in the oil sand industry, but we also use it for producing ammonia, fertilizers, and also some use in chemical. The total hydrogen production typically in Canada is about 3 million tons to 3 to 4 million tons. Majority of that we use here in Alberta, and especially in western regions. So, the other key thing I would say with hydrogen production is, so we know how to produce hydrogen. Large scale plant, 350,000 tons a year, which would be very large plant. But producing that, we also have the workforce who is trained in producing hydrogen and decades of experience.
Super experience.
Yes,
Yeah.
A lot of experience.
Yeah.
So that's an asset. We have lots and lots of natural gas, right? One of the large producer of natural gas globally. Yeah. So that gives us a feedstock to produce large scale hydrogen. Now, people talk about hydrogen production from natural gas. Yes, most of the process today is steam methane reforming, and that produces CO2. But here in Alberta now, we have large infrastructure of capturing that CO2 and putting it underground. Yeah. And it's not only just the process of capturing it and putting it underground, it needs the geology which suits the absorption of CO2. We have the geology to where it is benign to put CO2 in. It can absorb the CO2. The other key piece is in terms of having the infrastructure to do it. If you think about, we have built a large infrastructure, Alberta Carbon Trunk Line, which can sequester and transport about 14 million tons of CO2 per year, which is huge, one of its kind globally. Yeah. So, if you think about what Alberta could do, we have the resources, we have the know-how, we have been doing it at a scale, we have the infrastructure to sequester carbon, and then we have the geology. We are blessed with the geology to sequester carbon. If you put it all together, we can produce low carbon hydrogen, provide it to the world on a large scale, and a secure supply, pretty stable economy. Yeah. So, all those...
We've got it all.
All.
We got it all.
Exactly. And that helps us in becoming a leader.
Yes.
There is a potential for us to become a global leader in hydrogen production.
So a couple of things I want to hit on there, what you were saying. So transportation for one. Right now, we've got the ability to transport this. Where are we transporting it to right now? Like on the country's map?
So in terms of the current hydrogen utilization, if you see, most of the hydrogen we produce it in the steam methane reforming, which are reactors, which are near the upgraders.
Gotcha.
So we produce it and continuously use it on larger scale.
Okay.
We don't export a lot. We do export it in form of ammonia, for example. Ammonia we export by rail, and that's an option to do that.
Yeah.
So commercially, we are doing that now.
Yeah.
The push is more to export it in a form of ammonia or methanol or even liquid organic hydrogen carrier, which is the technology which is coming up, but not yet on a commercial scale, where you blend it with chemicals and produce liquid, which can be like crude oil, which can be transported by pipeline. So we are still early in that, but currently most of the hydrogen that we produce, we use it here. And some we export it in form of ammonia.
Gotcha.
But there it's more like used as a fertilizer.
Okay. Now on the with all these, like, you know, the wicked base foundation that we have here in the province, who are other countries in the world that have something similar to that? Like, who else is doing something at the scale that we have the potential and are actually executing right now? Who else in the world is doing that?
So globally, you would see that, you know, very few jurisdictions have this kind of capability, which is a combination of resources, know-how on larger scale, workforce, geology to sequester carbon. Most of the countries where hydrogen is produced, it would be mostly for use in the refinery or you use it for producing fertilizers. And so across the world, this is kind of where hydrogen is produced. Some of the other countries where there could be potential for producing hydrogen, where you have natural gas. So Middle East, it will have natural gas. The US can produce also because they have a lot of natural gas too.
Right.
So all those countries where you have natural gas, they can produce hydrogen. Some of them have been producing hydrogen, but mostly it is for the use there.
Gotcha.
Very few large-scale export of hydrogen is currently happening.
Okay. So there's a lot of options for energy security into the future, and we're trying to do a ton of this decarbonization. Now when we look at like renewables, we've got natural gas to start at the top of the list, and then we go down into the renewables sector. Where does hydrogen fit in there? You know, you were mentioning this off camera, just a little bit of where it fits and why does it fit in such a unique position as a tool for us to execute carbon emissions, decarbonization.
Right.
Where does it fit in there?
Yeah, excellent question. See, when I see hydrogen, I see that as falling into a basket of options. So I always categorize different options for decarbonization. Broadly, if you look at, there are three big baskets of options. The first one, and the low-hanging fruit, is energy efficiency. So you improve the way you use energy. So you improve the efficiency of use. And these are low-hanging fruit, low cost options, but it doesn't have a lot of potential of mitigation. So you hit a limit in how much you can do. In past, we have done work where it says, for example, if you look at Alberta, we could get up to about 20 to 24 million ton a year, that mitigation by energy efficiency. And that could change depending on the technology, but that's kind of the limit. The second basket of option I look at are renewables. So you use wind, solar, biomass, geothermal to produce electricity, to produce heat. The third basket of option is carbon capture and storage. So whatever we are emitting, we capture that, put it underground. So these are a large basket of options. Hydrogen, I put it between the second and third basket because you can produce hydrogen from renewables. So wind, solar, hydro, any of these, they produce electricity, which is renewable electricity. You take that electricity and use it in an electrolyzer to produce hydrogen and oxygen. So that is green hydrogen for you. And then we have a lot of natural gas. So you can produce hydrogen from natural gas, which we have been doing for decades. Steam methane reforming is the process that they use today. But in that process, you emit CO2. But if you can capture that CO2 and then sequester it, so it is basically SMR with CCS. And so you can use natural gas to produce hydrogen with CCS, which gives you low carbon intensity hydrogen. So that's another pathway of producing hydrogen.
Double whammy.
Yeah, and so that's why you get into the second and third basket of hydrogen.
Gotcha.
Now, you know, hydrogen is not new to us. We have been using it in the refinery globally, producing fertilizers and for chemicals. The push now is to use hydrogen in sectors Wherever we use natural gas for producing heat, we can use hydrogen. Yes, the economics is different. Then you also look at what technology you need to use hydrogen, but it can be used wherever you are using heat or others, using natural gas to produce heat or other sources to produce heat. Now, there are some sectors which are large emission intensive sectors where there are not a lot of options for decarbonization. For example, cement. For example, iron and steel, glass industry, where the temperature is much higher, which you need. And so then there are challenges. If you want to electrify it, there are challenges in terms of electrifying those processes, much more expensive.
Yeah.
And these are larger sectors where hydrogen could give an option of decarbonization. And so even if you think about, other options of decarbonization in different sectors, these high temperature and emission intensive sectors, hydrogen is a big option for decarbonization. And so, my sense is that as we see and grow this hydrogen economy, you will find that hydrogen will have very niche applications. These sectors would be the major ones. You will also have transportation. Now, so for example, in transportation, and especially heavy duty trucks, if you see,
right,
you can electrify it, but the challenges comes in terms of the size of the battery and how long can it support.
Yeah.
And so there also hydrogen provides a lot of option.
Yeah.
In terms of decarbonization, these heavy-duty transportation sector.
And that technology is really moving now.
And that's moving
it's
faster.
really coming up a lot faster. And there's some real people that have really invested in it.
Yes.
We talk about here in Edmonton with the airport.
That's right.
And I'd be curious to know more stories about the rest out into the world. But the investment into that is really starting to be pushed.
So I mean, it is coming up and then has a special, I think, opportunity for these emission-intensive sectors to use hydrogen. And especially I find in Alberta, as I talked about the opportunities and the experience that we have and the infrastructure built in, we could be a global leader.
Yeah.
We could supply hydrogen to different jurisdictions around the world.
I'm just going to go back a little bit to something earlier you said about green hydrogen. Now, there's another level, blue hydrogen.
Yes.
Can you tell me a little bit about what that is and what its potentials are?
Okay.
Yeah.
So there are different ways how you can produce hydrogen. So the green hydrogen is basically referring to hydrogen which we produce from renewables.
Right.
So for example, wind, as solar, you produce electricity.
Yeah.
And that electricity, you can use it in an electrolyzer. So you feed water to the electrolyzer and then you use electricity to split water into hydrogen and oxygen.
Gotcha.
So the hydrogen which you produce, that's green hydrogen.
Okay.
Because it has low carbon intensity.
Right
so
from the beginning.
From the
beginning. At the beginning of the chain.
That's right.
It's,
That's right. So that's green hydrogen. Blue hydrogen, so currently the hydrogen that we produce is using natural gas.
Right.
So we use natural gas through steam methane reforming, you produce hydrogen. But in the process, you have CO2 going up. Now, current process, we call all the hydrogen that we produce as gray hydrogen because you don't capture CO2. The moment you capture that CO2, which is emitted during the process and put it in the sink, then it's blue hydrogen.
Gotcha.
So a lot of push and a lot of movement in Alberta is on blue hydrogen.
Because that's our primary sources on how we're producing.
Exactly. Okay. And we can produce low carbon intensity hydrogen.
Right.
We use steam methane reforming, but new technology like autothermal reforming is coming up where you can capture almost 95% of the hydrogen, 95% of the CO2 that you emit.
Yeah.
And so it is much more efficient, much more carbon neutral, low carbon intensity. So there is more push to do this. I would say the other key thing is the green hydrogen technology is still coming up. It is still expensive. So if you look at blue hydrogen production, the cost of producing hydrogen from wind power is almost threefold. So, that technology still needs to move up and become competitive to blue hydrogen. My sense is it is going to take about 8 to 10 years time frame before green hydrogen becomes competitive. But here, the blue hydrogen helps you in that transition to green.
Yes.
You initially, because you need such a large amount of hydrogen and we can produce it at a scale now, So, there would be a transition. Initially, we're going to use a lot of blue hydrogen. And when the technology for green hydrogen becomes cost competitive, then we transition to green.
Yeah. I mean, it's all about balance.
That's right.
I mean, it's not like we can't flip that switch.
Yes.
Is there a point, and I want to get into, because you're a key component to writing the hydrogen roadmap for Alberta and the rest of the country. Is there with that balance? Is there a point where you kind of because you're saying it's so expensive on the green side, and we have to build so much infrastructure. I mean, we got to build more wind towers, or wind turbines, and so on and so forth. And I mean, I'm assuming that that's what contributes such a massive amount of that dollar figure on expense. Whereas we have that infrastructure already on our natural gas production. Is there a I hate to say it this way, but is there a point where you cut your losses on the green energy, or is it essential to the plan to get us to the green energy and get off of the natural gas production?
See, if you think about, first the component of green hydrogen cost. Just to give you an example, if you're producing hydrogen from wind, 163 megawatt or 160 megawatt wind turbine farm. So you are thinking about, let's say, if wind turbine is 1 megawatt, one wind turbine. So you need 160 of those. So 160 megawatt wind turbine farm, that will produce almost 10% of one natural gas-based hydrogen plant.
Wow.
So what we have here, 300 megawatt power, 300,000 tons per year plant, 10% of that you can produce by 160 megawatt wind turbines, so 160 of these.
Yeah.
So the scale itself, it has to come up.
Huge.
The other key component is the electrolyzer cost, the cost of producing hydrogen through electrolysis. The cost is higher. The electrolyzer cost needs to come down before it could become competitive. So, the technology has to improve to do that. And
even the cost, like it has to, we have to get efficient. The technology is one thing, but just get to build all that.
Yeah,
you're talking 160.
Of course.
The cost is just astronomical.
And that's another key, is that you have to put that infrastructure in place.
Yeah.
I mean, here we are building plant so for example, Air Products' new hydrogen plant that is expected to come online next year.
Okay.
And that is a large scale hydrogen plant. So that would be almost double the size of existing plants. So we are talking about very large hydrogen production plant. But you see that we built it, which is such a large scale, is still in 2 to 3 years time frame. But to go to the renewables, you have to build that 163 turbines.
Yeah.
And then all the hydrogen infrastructure plant. So, again.
But still just to get 10%.
10%. Exactly.
Yeah.
10%. And the cost is still high.
Yeah. So then, again, I'm going back to the balance. How much, I mean, obviously it's super important for our natural gas producers, our oil and gas producers, which we've been doing for decades.
Yes.
Have some sort of investment into this hydrogen plan themselves, because I mean, otherwise, where do we get the money from? They can't just come straight from government subsidies all the time.
Right.
We've got to have a real buy-in from our traditional sectors to get into that, and that is coming. Like we see a lot more of their involvement into this new technology, and I mean, essentially, they're investing into something that's at a certain point will make them obsolete, and we're talking way down the road.
Yeah.
But it's pretty important, and you're seeing a lot more of that.
Right. And I think it's a chicken and egg thing too.
Yeah.
Right. To me. So large natural gas producers, so ATCO, very much interested. They are interested in developing plant. They are working a lot in developing this hydrogen economy. You have Air Products, big plant coming in. There are other announced plants which will come down the road, we hope. But also it is, if we develop infrastructure, and this is public-private partnership, develop infrastructure. So for example, I see Alberta, as we talked about, could be a global leader in export of hydrogen.
Yeah.
If we build an infrastructure to export our hydrogen, so for example, if we want to export it to Asia Pacific countries, we need to build hydrogen infrastructure so that we can take it to the coast, And then from there, we liquefy it or in other form, and we transport by tanker to Asia-Pacific countries.
Right.
Now, that infrastructure needs to be in place. If we build those infrastructure, you will see there would be more investment coming in. It is, again, a public and private partnership, but the economic opportunity, like,
you got to spend money to make money.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, and I think that, there are jurisdictions around the world who need our resources, who need hydrogen.
Yeah.
Right, Asia-Pacific countries, I mentioned Japan and Korea. I mean, there is really an economic opportunity to export our resources there.
Yeah, and you talk about the reason for that too, which I really like, just to explain to our audience that maybe are just learning more about hydrogen, but that reasoning being that they don't have as many of the options that we have here.
That's right.
When it comes to carbon capture or maybe even natural gas production.
Yes.
Some of these guys are still on coal, and they need to get off of that.
That's right.
We need as a world to get off of it to be more environmentally sound and safe. Right?
I mean, these countries are net importer of energy.
Yeah.
And so they import energy. Now, to decarbonize their sector, they need to import cleaner energy.
Yes.
Like, and we were talking about it, like, just look at Japan, for example. Japan, so they can import energy, but if they have to sequester that CO2, so they can import LNG, for example. They can produce energy from that LNG, electricity, or in other sectors. But the challenge is that it emits CO2.
Yeah.
They don't have the geology to sequester that CO2. They have to export that CO2 outside to be sequestered. Right. So that's a challenge.
Yeah.
So as a country, as a jurisdiction, you'd like to import a resource which is already clean. So you burn hydrogen, you produce water.
Yeah.
So you don't have to worry about carbon.
Oh.
So these are the challenges where these countries have limitations in terms of what options they have.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
well, and then also they're investing a lot into a more difficult process of carbon capture, whereas maybe the transition needs to happen to just switch to hydrogen, where they don't have to do the investment anymore into the carbon capture because they don't have the need for it anymore. But that's a process.
Yeah, and that's a process, and they do realize it. So if you see, a lot of these countries have already developed their own targets in terms of hydrogen import, hydrogen implementation, even ammonia implementation into their energy sector. So they're realizing this, and they have realized this, and they have been working towards it. So there is real potential for Alberta, because Alberta I see is that yes, we do have industries, but we are a net exporter of energy, exporter of our resources.
That's our economy.
That's our economy. That's our bread and butter.
Right.
So that's a bigger opportunity for us in terms of this is an opportunity, and world wants it.
Yeah.
Like, you export it to who wants it.
Yeah.
We are a pretty stable jurisdiction. We have lots of resources. We have infrastructure in place, know-how. So this provides a big opportunity for us.
Yeah. So without getting too much into policy, and, you talk about we're a stable economy. We're a stable, basically politic-wise, we're fairly stable depending on who you talk to these days. But anyway, when it comes to the policy and any red tape or roadblocks that we have, whether it's a liberal government that gets in, a conservative government, or whomever, and how other governments play with us in other countries, there isn't really much of it's a full buy-in on the hydrogen roadmap, and we'll talk about the roadmap in a second here.
Okay.
But it's a full buy-in. Whether it doesn't matter what government is in here, this is going to stay stable.
Yeah.
This is the plan.
That's right.
Yeah.
I mean, see, the key thing is, and then this is probably a big opportunity itself, is because hydrogen is a file which is kind of
It's neutral.
Neutral. So both federal and the provincial government are aligned in this on this file.
Right.
This and then CCUS.
Yeah.
Carbon capture, utilization, and storage. So irrespective of which government comes in federally, hydrogen is a way to go, and it will be there.
Yeah.
It will be a pathway for this. And this is pretty unique.
Yeah,
I would say. So I think this is a very stable and probably area where continue to be a pathway for decarbonization in Canada.
Yeah.
Globally too. I mean, see, hydrogen is unique in a sense that you have both renewables and non-renewable sources which can help in producing hydrogen and low carbon intensity hydrogen.
Yeah.
So jurisdiction.
It's not looked at that way sometimes.
Yeah.
And people need to kind of look at the larger, that larger picture
and see, like, you can produce hydrogen from any of the renewables. So jurisdictions which are more favoring green, well, probably renewables is an option. Yeah. And then we can produce hydrogen from natural gas, low carbon intensity natural gas based hydrogen with carbon capture and storage. So, this is a kind of, source which can be produced to multiple pathways. We didn't even talk about nuclear.
Yeah,
because nuclear is
I wasn't
another.
sure if you wanted to go there.
No, but I think, like, the key thing for that is also that provides us another option of producing hydrogen. Low carbon intensity hydrogen. So, there is a lot of talk and a lot of push to develop these small modular nuclear reactor. Or 300 megawatt nuclear reactor. This will follow the same path as we produce hydrogen from wind and solar or hydro. But, that will provide another option for producing low carbon intensity hydrogen. And my sense is both, again, provincially and federally, they are aligned on that too.
On it. Yeah. So I mean, it sounds like our biggest challenge right now is infrastructure. It's just getting it out there. Like we've got we're building the plants, we're building the technology. It's just getting it out to the masses. We talked, a little bit off camera too about leading by example and using it ourselves.
That's right.
And that's starting to come. Like we've got the vehicles on the hydrogen side of things. I think we've just recently opened a home that's running off of hydrogen over in Sherwood Park. Which is, that's fairly new news at the time of taping this, which is really exciting because it's just to see it in action. It's not theory anymore. It's not magic and wizardry. It's here it is. It's here, and we're using it. And leading by example by putting that here is super important to show the rest of the world that, like, it's not just a myth. It's doable.
And that's what, like, the key push for us is in the hydrogen roadmap, we talked about that. What are the sectors where it can be used? So we looked at, residential, commercial, transportation, industrial.
It's limitless.
Exactly. All the demand sectors you can use hydrogen. And as you said, you have to lead by example, that we are already doing it. And to show this can be done. This is the way it should be done to the world.
Now on CCUs and carbon capture, now like I was saying earlier in the episode here, we were talking about you're a key player in writing the roadmap. How is how is accountability measured, and what are these benchmarks? Because we're coming up on writing a revision to that roadmap, later in the year, 2025. How's the accountability being measured on our successes and identifying our challenges and how you write that roadmap or the next revision of that roadmap? How is that
figured out? The first one that we had done, I mean, the 3-4 years ago time frame, we have seen how it has developed the interest and how the economy is growing. I mean, I would go back and say, we did not have a hydrogen plant at that time. Now we see Alberta, the Air Products hydrogen plant coming up. Hopefully next year to start. There are other announcements about the hydrogen roadmap. The other thing is there is a lot of interest in talking about hydrogen. So you gave an example of the home, which was built 100% hydrogen. That's an example of hydrogen. We are talking a lot about when we started for the first one, we did not have a lot of standards, a lot of standards to how we use hydrogen. Now there is a lot of focused group and a lot of work going on in that domain. So there's a lot of interest in that side. People have started exploring and looking at the decarbonization options, of course, comparing this, but they are looking at hydrogen, saying, does it make sense for our application? Does it make sense for our industry? And so there is a lot of movement on hydrogen. Some of the things you see, the first the Canadian Hydrogen Convention that we did was in 2022, just after COVID. That was probably, my sense is that at that time we had 25 to 3,000 people coming in. You see, we have done 2 more, like it's been 3 hydrogen convention, and you see how the interest has grown. And even large international participation, delegations coming in and participating in it. So there is a lot of interest and in the hydrogen sector. My sense is that we will slowly hone it down in where we use, and that will have different types of application around the world. But some sectors where we will probably hone in, more focused.
We're still in the exploration
exactly,
stage. Yeah,
exactly.
for sure.
And so emission-intensive industries, high temperature application industries, transportation, heavy-duty transport. I mean, those would be the sectors where we will see there's a lot of application of it. We don't have a lot of decarbonization options. So
right. Well, and we need to bring down the high emission, creators. We need to bring them down.
That's right.
And we got to come up with different solutions. And those, those industries you mentioned, that's the high emissions. So,
And also, there has been a lot of, you would see some of the smaller industries have come up. We are developing technology to support the hydrogen economy.
Right.
So, you could look at now there are companies which are working on producing liquid organic hydrogen carriers. So where, you add hydrogen to chemicals to produce it in a liquid kind of crude oil kind of material, and you can transport it. So there is a lot of work on that. There's a lot of work on hydrogen storage and how do we store large scale hydrogen. So these different pipeline materials. So, a lot of these interests and companies are coming up who are working on different aspects of hydrogen value chain.
Yeah.
So all of those have come up in last 3 to 4 years time frame. Since we developed the hydrogen roadmap.
Well, you mentioned value change. It's like discovering anything new or developing anything new. It's a domino effect because it's like, oh, we are able to do this, but to do that, we need this and this. So another set of technology needs to be developed. And
that's right.
I mean, the oil sands were a prime example of that. I don't think very many people are aware or pay attention, but the amount of technologies that touch so many other sectors that were created to solve the oil sands problem of extracting that oil. And we talk about the steam injection and stuff, but there were so many other technologies developed to do that. But then we were like, oh, hey, this works over here. Will it work over there? And it does. Oh, awesome. I mean, a lot, like even when the BP oil spill happened, a lot of tech was taken from Fort McMurray and brought down there to help them come up with a solution and solve the issues they're running into.
Yeah,
that's pretty neat.
Yeah, it is, and I think, as I said, slowly we will hone into and apply hydrogen on larger scale in certain sectors. The other piece, I think, we have been doing it, but we need to continue to do it, is in terms of outreach and public education, in terms of using hydrogen. People talk about, oh, can it supply energy into my home? I mean, that home which was built, that's neat, pretty neat. And so a lot of outreach and education is needed. Some kind of, I would say coherent effort in terms of doing this at the provincial level and federal level. Because that will help in people thinking through it and then being comfortable with this new form of energy when they listen to that it is coming to their home.
Yeah. Is there incentives that, could be applied in that sense? I mean, we had the solar incentive from the government where we're doing lots of rebates and so on and so forth. Is something like that something maybe the government needs to look, or organizations need to look at more seriously? I'm not 100% sure how that home works just yet. Like, I don't know if it's a tank or how that works.
It's just it's a demonstration home, right?
Okay.
So you use everything, so that you produce hydrogen and then you use it. The key is that we don't yet have a incentive specifically for hydrogen for the residential sector, but my sense is there is a lot of work going on by different agencies to look at how we can implement and how we can support hydrogen. So something for, I would say, the near future.
Now, you're at the University of Alberta. Where are some more places, or some of the better places for information like this, to get educated, like for those that want to go out and learn more?
Right. See, and this is interesting. See, I started working on hydrogen for almost 15 years ago. At that time, we were looking at underground coal gasification, producing syngas, taking that syngas to the surface and separating CO2 and hydrogen through syngas. That was 15 years ago through funding through Alberta Innovates. But universities play a key role in terms of looking what is out there across the band. And that's what I see. over the years, we have developed a lot of information on hydrogen. I am one of the researchers who is working on, but there is a group of 35, 40 people who are working on various aspects of hydrogen.
Yeah.
Some of them have come up, they have now interest in working on hydrogen. So, we talked about hydrogen value chain. So we have people who are working on each and every, I would say, unit operations of hydrogen value chain. So production, you look at green hydrogen production, you look at blue hydrogen production. We have folks who are working on different technologies. We have people who are working on hydrogen storage. We have people who are working on the transportation of hydrogen. People we have who are working on utilization of hydrogen. So it's the whole critical mass which has developed for 35, 40. That's happened with the oil sand industry. If you take the analogy, that's how we developed and created a monster which is supporting and continue to support not only Alberta, but whole of Canada.
Yeah.
And so...
Well, in the world.
In the world, yes,
that.
exactly. We export, that's right. So, and I think that's what it is happening. And it is also it's also unique is, we talk about hydrogen, but carbon capture and storage. Another big group of people who are working on various aspects of carbon capture and storage, which is so close and kind of joined at the hip with the way we produce blue hydrogen. So if you think about University of Alberta, we have very large, unique group of people who can work on this. And that you won't find in a lot of places around the world. Very few.
Yeah. Do you get a lot of reach out, from other countries, other institutions that, are looking, hey, what are you guys up to? Like, how is that collaboration of knowledge? I love exploring where we can collaborate, where we can talk with other countries, we're a species. And we got one planet, and we're this entire process of what we're exploring here with hydrogen is about prolonging the existence of us and our species and this planet for generations to come. I would assume that you're a very passionate man in regards to this topic, and the research you're doing, the roadmaps you're developing. It's a legacy. When we apply this is a legacy for generations to come. So the work you're doing is awesome, right?
Thank you.
I want to know, and my hope is that there's more people that are jumping on board in a collaborative aspect. Economy is one thing, but a collaborative aspect for the common good.
Yeah.
Are you seeing that? Is that coming out, like I said, from institutions? Are they reaching out to university? Is the U of A reaching out and saying, hey guys, we just had a breakthrough, or we've got something we want to look at. How do we work together to come up with results?
Yeah. No, great question. See, universities are pretty unique. Universities, we don't go a lot into the political, kind of, discussion or relationship. Ours exchange globally is through knowledge sharing, information sharing. And we are unique in terms of having this large scale collaboration globally. So we set up a lot of centers. We set up a lot of collaboration groups. So, at the university, I'll give you a very recent example. We got I would say, global center on sustainable bioproducts funded by the governments of 6 different countries. This is US, Canada, UK, Finland, Korea, South Korea.
Awesome.
And Japan. So, and what that is it's a global center for 5 years. Different researchers from different universities in these countries are collaborating on trying to solve some of these decarbonization problems, producing sustainable materials, where you will have a lot of use of hydrogen too, but all the biomass materials. This just one example. There are a lot of projects that we do, international collaborative projects with a lot of countries in Europe, US, Asia, Pacific countries. We have existing collaborations with several countries where we do have these relationship, exchange of a student, exchange of faculty members. You see a lot of publications. So we put out a lot of publications in peer-reviewed journals. A lot of these you will see there are joint authors on this from different countries. We help building these bridges between different countries through discussion with the researchers. This is a bridge through which not only the government could use this bridge, but industries. You have collaborative effort between other sectors of the community. So we form that bridge and that help in developing collaborations and trade.
Perfect.
And that's what we play a key role. So there is a lot of discussion on the hydrogen piece. There is a lot of collaboration already happening in different.
Yeah. Excellent. What about investment from like our natural gas producers and companies into the education system or into, and then also programs where students can go in, with the pursuit of hydrogen, technology development and education, and then come out of school with options and opportunities for jobs, but here in Canada.
Yeah, and that's a great question. See, in terms of a lot of focus that we do in terms of training people, and also your first part was on the funding, investment. Good.
Yeah.
So I would say that University of Alberta, if you look at University of Alberta, we are the university in Canada where one of the largest industrial chair program we used to have.
Okay.
So what that means is industry puts dollar in, we get it funded, we supported by also federal government, provincial government. We had large number of industrial research chair program,
awesome,
which basically does it's set up to address challenges in a particular area. And so this is just one example. We have a lot of collaboration with the industry where industry puts money in, federal government leverages that money, match it, and then we do research. So
awesome.
The industry, government, and academia participation, there are a large number of projects, lots on the hydrogen side, long-term projects. And so this is a mechanism and a key pathway for us to do our research. And so a lot of the energy industry have invested a lot of money in our university to develop the research chair program, develop the research that, we have helped the industry in solving some of the challenging problems. If you think about how oil science started, it was started at the university. You develop technology, you transfer that technology, then the industry commercializes, and it moves on. That's what we have been doing, and that's what we do. So there is continuous investment. And I think the other piece in terms of training the workforce on hydrogen, I mean, we already train people. We already train people in terms of their work on hydrogen, various aspects of hydrogen, solving some challenges, hydrogen. We still need to do more. We still need to develop the programs where people are just trained on hydrogen.
Gotcha.
That still needs to be done, not only at the university, but also at the other institution, other post-secondary institutions. Specific to certain kind of training, but specific to certain kind.
Well, even the industry itself.
The
industry needs to be doing training on site, and a lot of that's going to be hands-on.
That's right. And so one of the need for this to go forward is also to set up some kind of joint trade or training center or the outreach center, which could help in pushing this forward. So that could have multiple benefit. It could help in educating the public. It could train the workforce for the next generation. It could help in solving some of the challenges that the industry is facing. It could help in basically as a think tank to the different government.
That's cool.
And industry. So there is a need to do this kind of, long-term center, trade center, or
it's a different kind of investment.
It's
a different kind of investment. It's educational investment.
That's right.
Is so important.
And it's not it should not be just by the government too, but it should be from the industry too, but a collaborative effort. We do that, but there is a need to do that in the hydrogen space. We did the center when the first hydrogen roadmap, we set up the Hydrogen Center of Excellence at Alberta Innovates, which funds a lot of the technology developers, a lot of university projects. But I also think that there is a need to do it at the university where we train. And these things that I talked about, outreach, education to the public, as a think tank, training people for next generation, and developing interest in these younger people to see that what hydrogen could do. And of course, the research project we do. So that's kind of is I would say there is a need to do that to move this forward.
Well, and making it practical for the average user. So like this home is going to be
That's
huge.
right. Exactly.
This home is going to be like people can like see it, they can touch it, they can understand it, they can walk through it, tour it, so on and so forth. And I think just because people's lives are so complicated on a regular basis, they just I come home, the power's on, the heat's on, I'm good to go. I don't need to know anything else, right? But to look at other alternatives, I mean, solar has taken such a long time. To just, I mean, one is affordability, obviously, but I think the other is knowledge and understanding how it works. And there needs to be a transformer in the home and so on and so forth. Some people go, it's too complicated. We just gotta I don't want to say dumb it down, but just scale it down to digestible information and practical information and sell that benefit so that people have a thirst for the knowledge. And people are looking. I mean, I think that the renewable resources and the clean tech and energy thirst for that is grown exponentially over the last even 5 years. Like people are seeing the benefit because they're hearing their neighbor. Oh, their neighbor did this. And they're like, tell me more about it.
That's right.
So more of these hydrogen homes, more hydrogen vehicles that come out.
Yes.
Everyone's, before you know it, everyone's going to have a cyber truck. And it's just because that information, the practicality and the communications out there, we can do that with hydrogen as well.
And see, at the university, we focus a lot on hands-on training, right? So bringing people in, bringing these different age groups to the university to show them what actually it means. And that's a unique place which university can only show. Right? With different stages, different sectors. Even we bring high school kids to come to our lab and see the technology, what we are talking about. And then, as you said, making these people feel more comfortable, build confidence in them that, this works. This is pretty neat. I mean, that is the very unique thing that university can do, and a lot of hands-on training we try to do it in different sectors.
Right. So I'll touch base a little bit before we close on awareness. We've got the hydrogen conference coming up here in 2025 again, and this is year 3 or 4. This is year 4, right? Yeah. And you touched on it earlier in the conversation, but the amount of industry professionals globally that come here to Alberta, to Edmonton, get an opportunity to get hands-on, tour. Hopefully we'll be touring some plants and some other facilities. How important is that kind of, those kinds of events, I guess, to be bringing here?
Those are very important. That puts Edmonton on the global map. Right? This is where the place is, and then this is where things are happening. And we, in fact, the conference organizes tours to different plants. We actually host large delegation to come to university and see our labs, what we are doing in hydrogen. We have been doing that since last 3-4 years, and then that has been pretty well attended. And there is a lot of global interest, and there is a lot of people now know about Edmonton through these kinds of conferences, and then especially in the hydrogen space. Alberta, my sense is that Alberta does have a place because we are such a large energy jurisdiction, energy exporter. People know, and then this is also an opportunity to educate people who come in that what we are doing. Everybody might not know that what kind of infrastructure we have supporting this hydrogen industry, not only in terms of the infrastructure, but also the universities, how they are supporting this industry. I mean, those key things are important for any investment to come in here.
That's the ultimate goal.
That's the ultimate goal. Exactly.
They
want to look at, okay, so I invest money in, how do I get the return back? I have people? Do I have infrastructure to support this? All of those kind of factors are critical to developing any hydrogen economy. So these conferences are great.
Well, and showing stability is so important too, and that there's an ecosystem.
That's right.
I think a lot of organizations and a lot of different sectors, they don't have an ecosystem like we have here in Alberta and Canada. I mean, you take politics out of it.
Yes.
Politics
Yes.
is a front-facing, it's loud and it's in our face, but the people that are actually doing things are solid. And showing that at a conference like that and in some of our communication is so key to attracting that investment.
And see that, how we have developed our energy industry over the decades.
Yeah.
That is an example, irrespective of which government, irrespective of different, aim and goal, but we have developed that industry.
It's consistent.
It's consistent.
Yeah.
So we do have an ecosystem, as you said, innovation ecosystem and supporting ecosystem for these kinds of large industry setup.
Yes. Yeah.
And so, that is, I say, is a great achievement for us. And then, hydrogen is a economy and it's an option where we can again build another big economy.
Yeah.
With everything which is
so many offshoots.
Yeah.
There's so many other places this could go. And I think we still in some cases don't know what we don't know. One day there might be a breakthrough, whether it's at the university or at and it opens another door where it's like, wow, we didn't think of it that could go in that direction. And now we've discovered that it can.
And I think if we again look at the hydrogen value chain, we don't even know a lot of technology which will come in a decade or 2 decades. There are a lot of decarbonization technology which we have not discovered yet, which will take us forward. So, those things is going to happen if there is support to doing this, and that is here, right? Continuous support to do this kind of research, and having a stable and a ecosystem where there are people but support from different kind of sectors, the economy, and that is critical. And we have shown that through developing our energy industry. So this is another opportunity.
It's exciting times.
It is very, very exciting time.
Well, Amit, thank you so much for coming in and educating me and our audience on just all of these neat and cool things that are happening here. It's exciting times, like we said. It's a bright future. And we just got to get people to hop on board, learn more, visit University of Alberta, obviously, get a chance, if you can get a chance to partake in the conferences, get on board with that. I'm not sure if they're opening up tours of that home yet or not. I got to do some more homework on it because that's fairly new news.
Yes.
So I'd love to learn more about that. But if there's an opportunity to get out there and understand that more, by all means, people get out there and learn more about it. So again, thank you so much for coming in and chatting with us today.
No, thanks a lot, Bryce. This was really great to have a discussion on this.
Perfect.
And I see the future is bright for us, and the sky is the limit. That's what I say.
Yeah.
And anybody wants to get in touch with me or with other colleagues working on hydrogen at UFA, they are welcome to do that.
Excellent. Right on.
Okay. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you.